I want to hit you.
Come on with it.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Stoll. I'm going to carry on where I was going before. And Senator Sinodinos, you seem to take umbrage as I was going through my checklist of former government policies. I'd like to ask you about some of your own. I'm used to it. So Minister Hunt, during the election campaign, flagged the idea of establishing integrated planning commissions for each of our capital cities. The one that I'm aware of is the one that operated in South Australia, worked very, very well, and I just wouldn't mind an update on whether that commitment can be taken as policy and when that's going to happen.
I need to take that on notice and come back to you, Senator.
You aware of the commitment that was made?
I'm not personally aware of the commitment, Senator. I'll take that on notice.
I'm aware he spoke about the matter and has written on the matter. What I'm not aware of, Senator, is what specific commitment was made in the campaign, but we will follow up and see what we can find.
Because Mr Hunt has all sorts of opinions and all sorts of things that don't appear to be making their way into government policy. That's a great idea. The one that operated in Adelaide in South Australia did excellent work before it was absorbed into I think PM&C or premiers and cabinet. So I would just flag that we'll be keeping an eye on that. If you can provide us with any information as that progresses.
I'll certainly get you some advice on that, sir.
It is. The now minister, also flagged that the Commonwealth would establish a national livability index under which each city would get its own specific set of targets. Annual reporting to commence from 2015. That one is a fairly specific commitment. Is that about to be rolled out?
Again, Senator, we are continuing work that we were previously doing in relation to performance measures for our urban areas, but I'm not aware of that specific commitment. Can I take that on notice and come back to you?
Somebody needs to start listening to the things that Mr Hunt says. He keeps making commitments. Somebody needs to pay attention.
He was the Shadow Minister for the Environment.
Yeah, so should we take this gentleman's commitments at his word, or...?
No, I'm just saying that I'm not, as Assistant Treasurer, I'm not necessarily across the commitments he made. That's why the department is going to be assiduous in following up.
We will follow those up and any others that you may have, Senator.
All right. Just coming back to things that were underway that were occurring, and Senator Sinodinos, the reason that I'm foregrounding these is that they're actually programs that were working. They were things that were providing quite a valuable service to industry and to the community, to city administrators and so on, and I would hate to see them go. So, metro strategy reviews, will they continue to be coordinated and looked after by the Major Cities Unit?
Again, Senator, that's a matter for future government consideration.
Okay. What have you folk been doing for the last 2.5 months?
Implementing government policy.
But
restructuring departments.
I'm trying to establish whether there is a policy here or just a vacuum where a policy formally was.
Senator, the government has had a very busy agenda since its swearing in of ministers and the government. I think we will deal with these matters as we can. There have been other priorities, and as the minister's outlined in the first
80% of the Australian population lives in major cities, 70 to 80%. What is of a higher priority than the welfare and well-being of those people?
Well, Senator, we've been very busy implementing the government's commitments in relation to major infrastructure projects, for instance, in our major cities.
Crashing everybody's public transport proposals.
Senator, we've been delivering the government's agenda in relation to quite significant investments in infrastructure in our major capital cities. That has been a priority of the government, and that's what the department has been focusing on.
Not in public transport, though. There will be no public transport under a government I lead, I believe Mr Abbott is being paraphrased as having said.
Well, I think you're more than paraphrasing there. I don't think you should be inviting the officials to try and get into a political debate. I dealt with this issue earlier on.
I understand that.
You can check the relevant transcript.
You indicated earlier, Mr Murdoch, that it's your intention that the State of Our Cities reports will continue to be published, and that's good. That's a good sign. The 2013 report warned us that heatwave deaths in Australian cities are set to double by the year 2050 and increase fourfold in Brisbane and Perth, which is my hometown. And that's partly because of the urban heat island effect. So this is what climate change actually looks like running out to 2050. What's the government's response to that report that heat wave deaths in our cities are likely to double or even quadruple in
Move to the
Australia.
bush, son. Move to the bush.
Is that official government policy,
No,
Senator
that's my
Heffernan?
policy. You move to Junee. Do you good.
You're proposing that 70 or 80% of the population of the country move to the bush.
I've never had air conditioning, mate. You open the window.
I got new air conditioning the other day. It's fantastic. I recommend it.
Maybe we'll let you folk take the question. What's the government's response to that report that heatwave deaths are due to double or quadruple across Australia? In our major cities, sorry, that's why I'm putting it to you.
Well, Senator, it's not a matter that this portfolio was dealing with. I think the state Australian cities set out a range of research on urban issues.
That you wouldn't consider the quadrupling of heat deaths during heat waves to be a major urban issue?
Senator, this portfolio has a range of responsibilities. I don't think that matter, implementation of any response to such matter, falls within this portfolio.
You don't think it's got anything to do with infrastructure? Maybe that's part of the problem. You don't, sorry, don't let me put words in your mouth. You don't think it's got anything to do with planning or infrastructure?
I don't think there's anything I can add. I think I'm taking your comment as a statement largely. I don't think there's anything I can add to it.
Do you think that the Australian government can have any provide any remedy to that proposed doubling or quadrupling of heatwave deaths with the provision of Commonwealth infrastructure spending, which is what is your job to deliver?
Senator, I'm not familiar with that research.
You published it.
No, Senator.
It's your research.
No, Senator, we published the findings of some work in relation to state Australian cities. I don't think we undertook that research.
It's got a Commonwealth government crest on the cover of the report.
The report of State of the Australian Cities reports a range of urban issues research. I don't think we undertook that research. I'll take that on notice, but I don't think we undertook the actual research.
Senator Ludlam, your time is coming to an end.
Sounds a bit existential, Bill.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Was that a threat?
Well, yeah, more to the point. All right, this would be my last
Because I
bracket.
don't want you giving me
Only if you're in
This is my last set, Chair, and thank you very much for the warning. One of the other things that the SOAC report of 2013 included was the degree of car dependence that we have in Australia, particularly in middle and outer suburbs, that overall vehicle kilometres peaked in 2004 and has been heading down, and that actually public transport use is strongly on the increase. I understand that you canvassed some of these issues this morning. Was any advice provided to the new government at all on the costs and benefits of large urban freeway projects compared to the costs and benefits of urban rail and other public transport projects?
Senator, the government has come to office with a very strong commitment to a range of infrastructure projects. The department is implementing those projects.
But the commitment, you totally ignored the question that I put to you then. Did you provide any advice to the new government on the costs and benefits of large urban freeway projects compared to the costs and benefits of urban public transport?
We provided advice to the government in the incoming government brief in relation to their policy commitments, Senator.
Could you table that advice for us?
No, Senator, that's
Why is
advice
that?
we provided to the government.
The incoming government, yeah.
The incoming government, which works for all Australian taxpayers, so why can't we see that?
Senator, that's advice we provided to the government.
The National Urban Policy, which you haven't proposed to abolish at the table, you're going to check back to me and see what its status is, has a goal of reducing dependence on private motor vehicles. Is that the current government's policy, to reduce such dependence? This might be more for Senator.
I think the Minister undertook to establish the status of that, but as I say, the National Urban Policy was a policy document of the former government.
Will
The last question.
Are you aware of comments that the Leader of the Opposition, now Prime Minister, made in the run-up to the election, where he said freeways and motor vehicle traffic is good for health, good for the environment and good for mental health? Anybody at the table aware of those comments?
Say that again.
That roads were good for health, good for the environment, and that they're good for mental health.
But you blokes at one stage wanted to free up recreational drugs for our children too, so I
Bill,
suppose
give me a
that's
break,
relevant.
mate. Give me a break. Are you aware of those comments by the now Prime Minister?
I'm not personally aware of those comments, Senator.
Okay, so you wouldn't be able to provide, Senator Sinodinos, you aware of that particular contribution to the debate? Roads are good for mental health?
This was while Mr Abbott was opposition leader?
Yes, that's right.
I can't recall. You sure it wasn't something in battle lines or something like that?
No. It's very, very recent. It's within the last few
So
months.
what was the
I'm
context
trying to
that you
establish
ran all
whether or
the
not
way?
this is official government policy or not, that roads are part of your mental health platform.
Well, we'll find where the quote came from.
Oh, if you could provide me with an expression as to whether that's policy now.
It's an ongoing debate.
Is that because you run along the roads, or?
I have no idea what he meant. It sounded utterly delusional to me. I'm just trying to establish the minister that represents him in here, whether that's policy or
The
not.
person listening might have been smoking. Senator Stell's your chance.
Oh, thanks